begin with this. So thank you. I think everybody, let me welcome each and everybody here, and especially Jyotsna Roy ji. And thank you for agreeing. And I call her Didi. I can't really get into formal, conversations like this. So Jyotsna Didi has been my mentor for almost 2 decades, more than that, in fact. And she has been guiding, and she has coaching. She has been there when we need her in any advice. And I could not start this session, this particular workshop, this series of workshop on communication and documentation without her, flagging, kind of start it and kind of, start the workshop, and as well as give us her insight. So this is very, very important workshop, the series that we are having today and next 4 days. So thank you very much, Jyotsna Devi, for confirming. Yeah. And she is a social scientist by training. But I think the most important part that world knows her for the kind of contribution that she has done is she has worked in post-conflict countries on the institutional building and strengthening, and more about the enhancing and strengthening the capacity of implementing agencies, especially working with youth and women, girls and boys. So in her entire 40-year work of more than 3 decades, it has been on the capacity building for inclusion, which has been her, as I said, the core for her professional journey that she has been. And she has excellent writing skill, and I don't know whether I should share, but now she is also gone into academic mode, and this is which will actually help us out more in terms of what we are going to do today. So with these words, a bio is huge. We will anyway post it on the group for you all to have a look at it. But most important part that I can say is that a lot of development professional like us, like me and Sudha and everybody, all have been nurtured and mentored by Jyotsna Roy ji. So this is where we all coming from. And so thank you very much and for agreeing to be part of it. So what I told her in terms of briefing is most important part is not that deliverables will be done. It will be not, I'm not that much worried about it, deliverables. How do you, if in these 3-4 months of your journey till December, if you can learn how to write good research reports, how can write good proposal, if your writing skills can be enhanced, and that's the intent. So I said, in the session with the discussion with the Didi, we told her that you need to explain to her in terms of first writing. Let's address that. And then you can just take them through the outline document in terms of what is it will come under what heading. How do you really work on it? So with these words, I'd like to invite Didi, Jyotsna Didi, and we'll also do a group photo. So everybody, if you can switch on your cameras, we can have a group photo, and then I'll hand over the platform to Didi.
Okay. Am I visible?
You need to also switch on your camera. Jyotsna Didi, you need to switch on your camera.
Switch off, switch on.
On.
But it's on. It says it's on.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Didi. Yeah.
So that camera on?
Yeah, but we can't really see you. Sanjay, can we see you? Spin her. Well, let's just spin you up. Just one second.
This technology is very interesting but very challenging as well. Can you hear me clearly, Sanjay ji?
Yeah, you have joined from 2 systems like that.
Oh my God, this is too much.
Okay.
2 systems. एक में से डिलीट कर दो ना फिर मुझे.
Okay, Didi, anyway, I'm handing over to you now. And
As long as you can hear me, it's good.
We can hear you. Definitely. We just wanted to click a picture also. But yeah.
Okay.
It's
No,
fine. Please go ahead.
This meeting has been recorded. Okay. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And I'm very happy to be here. And it's always a privilege to work with Alka and Sudha and Sanjay ji, who now I think I've known all my life, right? So that's a privilege of being a senior, but also it's a tough task to be a senior and to be able to respond to needs when people ask, especially people who have been part of my life, almost the whole of my life. Am I too fast for you? Jitendra Singh ji, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Okay, good. And Ankit and Sudha is there. And Nivya.
Yes, ma'am.
Sundarajan. Yeah?
Yes, ma'am. I hear you.
Okay, hi. Oh, nice. Okay. So, so what we will do is, and to be able to talk to you people, I went through the whole project, which was very well shared by Alka and Sanjay and Sudha. And I looked at what tasks you have to do. And what you are doing is really some research and a lot of communication work, because you are in a project. You will go to a partner. You will work with a community or another agency, and maybe you'll also work with communities. Isn't that right? Yes. Okay. So. So I went through what you have to do, what are your deliverables and everything. And accordingly, because most of you, I understand, are people who are students and who are either doing their masters or your PhDs. That's what I understand. So to be able to be more effective, you have to have a better communication set of skills, and writing is part of communication. If I don't speak clearly and if I haven't prepared for it, you would not be able to understand what I'm saying. और अच्छे कम्युनिकेशन के लिए, अच्छे संवाद के लिए हमको अपने विषय को जानना जरूरी है, और हम किससे बात कर रहे हैं ये भी जानना जरूरी है, और हम क्या कहेंगे ये भी. तो मुझे क्या कहना है, किससे कहना है और कैसे कहना है. तो ये 4 चीजें होती हैं कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में. और अगर वो कम्युनिकेशन किसी ने सुना, if people have heard us and if people are not understanding us, then they will give us a blank face, or they will give us an understanding nod or an understanding blink of the eye. So that is also a part of communication. Okay. So communication, as we understand, and I don't want to go back to ABC, but it is always good to begin with ABC. So communication is what one person wants to communicate with the other, how, the means, which could be writing, which could be speaking, which could be mime also. You know, people who don't speak but do acting, they are also communicating with you, right? And people who are doing theater, they're also communicating a message or something. So it is the content and how you communicate and what you communicate. So that is important. So Sanjay ji, I sent you a set of slides because we are also used to PowerPoint presentations. Sanjay, can you put it up, the last one that I sent, communication and writing? Okay, so while Sanjay puts it up, one person communicates a message to another, either through speaking or writing or mime. The message has to be received, otherwise it is not complete. And once received, there has to be verbal or non-verbal feedback. And then that would complete the communication cycle. Is that right? Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You know, I wish I could see you people. I don't know what I've done. I'm so sorry, but okay. Next, Sanjay ji, next. No, not this one. There's another one that I sent you. Last में भेजा है. Acha, right now what you're really doing is action research, because you will be taking a topic and you will be studying it. So the study is about a problem that you have identified, you will gather evidence for it, you will make solutions, you'll study it, you will make solutions for it. So all the steps that you will be doing requires communication, requires your documentation, and ultimately writing your report. So you'll start from the proposal writing till you get to the report writing. संजय जी, दूसरा वाला एक और है, आपको दूसरा लास्ट में भेजा है. Okay, so what we can do is, communication is this. Now, how do we, I wish I could, okay. Now, in this whole communication process, what do you find difficult? Please unmute your, what is it, the screens, and just put up your hands so we can go, you have to learn how to communicate here also. So what do you find difficult in communication? Can somebody tell me? संवाद स्थापित करने में क्या मुश्किल आती है? What is the difficult part of communicating?
To put words into thoughts.
Words? Appropriate words? Bhavna? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What else? What else do you find difficult in communicating? Harshita, what do you find difficult in communicating? How is communication difficult?
Ma'am, I lack confidence and I don't have a grasp on a good vocabulary. I don't get words immediately what I want to convey, what I want to explain.
Jyotsna Di, please unmute yourself. Jyotsna Di, please unmute yourself.
Okay, now it's okay. Yeah. So now, you know what? Why do we communicate? We communicate for understanding and to be effective, So other people should understand what we want to tell them, what we want to say to them, or what we want to let them to read. And then we have to be effective, because अगर हम कुछ कहेंगे और उसको कोई समझेगा नहीं, कोई सुनेगा नहीं, तो उससे हमारे बातचीत करने में, लिखने में कोई मतलब नहीं है. तो what do you understand by communication? Can we get some input on that? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So unmute yourself. Okay, Badal, what do you understand?
Ma'am, like for the communication difficulties, I want to say, like, I really don't know how to initiate a communication and keep it like interesting. Like there should not be that level that's in सामने वाला ये सोचे कि बस सब शांत हो जाओ.
अच्छा, तो पहले किसी ने कहा था इनिशिएट करना. ओके, थैंक यू. बादल, म्यूट योरसेल्फ अगेन. लेट्स गेट इनटू द डिसिप्लिन. या, गुड. वोकैबुलरी, देन कॉन्फिडेंस. ठीक है ना? और कोई दिक्कत है कम्युनिकेशन करने में?
Ma'am, to make the content relatable to the audience.
Content relatable to the audience. Anything else? Apurva? Apurva Zode.
Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am. I do think vocabulary is sometimes to communicate. It becomes what word exactly to use and how we should convey our message to the person we want to address. That is the main.
Thank you, Apurva. I'm just going random. I don't know who you people are. So, Alina Thomas from Wayanad.
Am I audible?
Yes, Alina. Hello. And what is it that you find challenging to communicate?
Yeah. For me, my challenge would be, I would say, the vocabulary. Sometimes the idea that is there on my mind, and then if I want to communicate that particular idea suddenly, then sometimes I might go out of words. So the idea may not be clear for the other person.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. Okay. All right. One more. Who's there? Sundaraj, Kharagpur.
Ma'am, it's me, Nivya.
Nivya, hi Nivya.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I think communication is basically essential in, gathering preliminary research. And I think the problem that I go through is, developing the right kind of questions to ask people. Because usually when I haven't framed my questions properly, the other person might take it amiss.
Yes.
So I think that is a problem when it comes to communication.
Okay, good. Thank you, Nivya. Hussain, who's Hussain? One more, Hussain. The intern hai.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, Hussain, you're audible.
Hi, everyone. So when it comes to communication, so the problem which I usually face is like, for example, we're going in a flow, like me and you are talking like for 10 minutes. So but certain times it is, what I notice is that after some time when you're speaking constantly in flow, I used to lose my track. Like, the grammar goes wrong. Suddenly you are out of tenses. Then this is the thing which I've noticed in people as well. So the point is that when we're talking, but after some time, when it is a continuous flow of communication, then we try to skip the tenses. We try to there is a deformity in formation of words. So which at times is a point of concern. Like the communication need to be smooth throughout.
Okay. So basically, you're saying two things. One is, of course, how we start losing the grammar and the syntax, and the second is to keep the momentum going.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
thank you.
Good. One person, really, one from the south, and then one from Nainital, Ujjwal. Ujjwal Kandapal.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi, ma'am. Ma'am, the topic, the problem that I face in communication is that I might become quite frank in some conversations. Like if I'm trying to solve a problem and I really find out that we need even if it's an uncomfortable conversation, I will go for it. But the other person might not be comfortable in it. So that's something I face sometimes.
Okay. Okay, so largely what I hear is we are talking about a lot of oral communication, verbal communication, whereas communication is also in writing and both of it go together. If you can communicate well in speaking, so can you write, because while you're speaking, you're really addressing people directly. So you prepare better, because I feel I write better instead of speaking with people, because I have to think, I have to speak, and I have to formulate at the same time, isn't it? So communication is a far more complex process, and we have to be aware of it, and it's a matter of practice. You have to practice a lot. So all that you're saying is very valid, and we'll try and address some of those. And so thank you for sharing what you understand and what your challenges are. Sanjay ji, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so what you really said is we have difficulties in all these things. One person communicating the message to another, either through speaking, writing, or mime, or anything else. The message has to be received, because if you get distracted, then nobody is listening, and then your message doesn't get communicated. Once it is received, then people either nod, or they respond, or they turn their face away. So there are verbal and non-verbal feedback, or even written feedback. And so unless these things happen, effective communication cannot be established, along with all the challenges that you have faced. Do you agree with me? Just raise your hands. Let's see. I'm enjoying this medium, so yeah. Do you recognize these things? Okay. So we talked about the difficulties that we have. So what are the difficulties in the process? What makes you think? What will make you think that communication can be easy? How will you communicate while you're doing this fellowship? And will you communicate in the same way with all these people who are the people who you think you will communicate during this project? First, you're communicating already with your teachers because you have a mentor there, and then you are communicating with Center for Youth. Who else do you think you will be communicating with? आप किन किन लोगों से बातचीत करेंगे, किन किन लोगों से आप संवाद करेंगे, किन किन लोगों को लिखेंगे आप?
Ma'am, I think we'll also be dealing with a lot of people on the field if we ever go out. So it will be like lay people where they will be sharing their real problems. So this would be exposing us to a lot of vernacular languages. So that would be, you know, one of the points to take into consideration. So when we consider communication, it also has to blend along with the people who do not speak just English. So communication has to be effective in that.
So you have to be able to pick your field, or you go and learn the language, isn't it? That's also an option. If Alka extends this for 2 years, then 6 months you learn the language so that you can communicate well, and then you do your project. So that's also possible. Okay, yes, language is important, and you will be dealing with community, lay people, common people, people in the field. Who else will you be communicating with?
Partner organizations or the organization which would be sponsoring.
Partner organizations. So there will be other people who are your, maybe your supervisors, your mentors. Yeah.
For communication.
Yes. Who else will you be communicating with? Government agencies, possible? If you haven't decided your project yet, have you?
No, ma'am, we not.
Okay. So if you will do a project, for example, here, because I live in a community and I have to deal with a lot with the Municipal Corporation of Delhi, right? So you have to communicate with the officials, I have to communicate with the workers, and and all kinds of people. So you have to communicate with agencies also. Could be the water agency, could be the, I don't know who, the technical agencies, so many different. So you yourselves are saying that there are many different kinds of conversations. Isn't that right? So there will be many different kinds of communications that you will have to deal with, whether it is writing a letter, whether it is writing your project proposal, whether it is reporting. Maybe you'll have to set up a weekly reporting system. You communicate with the field staff. When you go to the community, you will communicate with the lay people, as Nivya talked about. So there'll be lots of different kinds of people, and you will be communicating within this fellowship in the next few weeks, not couple of weeks, but next 3 months, 4 months, you'll be communicating with a large variety of people. So you have to develop your own communication skills. And one of the major things that you have to be aware about is you have to be aware of who you're speaking to. If I speak the same way with my dad, with my father, he will say, what do you think you are, Can't you speak in a different language? Or if I speak with my grandmother the same way, she will ask me to leave the room, isn't it? But as a teacher, I speak to you like this. But I change the way I communicate with every person that I talk to. If I go to the government official and if I tell, you do it like this, he will just ask me to leave the room, right? So you communicate appropriately with whoever you want to, and you have to assess what you have to say. So Sanjay ji, next slide. Okay, so we are already coming to writing. So going back to how you communicate, how will you communicate better while addressing your problems or the challenges that you face? The important thing is, one of the challenges that we have, and you have not mentioned, is this whole instant messaging that we are getting so dependent on. So we don't write full sentences. We don't use, terminology and words. So this is a very good opportunity for you to start practicing that and getting out of the habit of this instant messaging all the time. And this is a very, very precious time that you can have to be able to develop that. And to read, we have stopped reading. We don't read books. We don't read even on the Kindle or on the different apps that are available. So if we are not reading and if you're not writing, then it becomes a challenge because you're not into that system, into that environment. On a personal note, these days I write with a pencil every day. Like I take my notes in a pencil and an eraser like I did when I was in class 1. Because otherwise automatically my grammar gets corrected, my spellings get checked. So to be able to do that, I take my notes with a pencil, with a normal pencil, HB pencil or whatever that is. So in that way, I'm thinking and I'm writing. I'm thinking of writing what I'm going to communicate to you. So there are different ways of doing that. So you start reading more. You will start using words more instead of I gonna do that. That's not the way to talk. That is one way of colloquial way of talking. That's not the way of writing. I wanna do that. That's the way we are talking these days. So if I say that, half my family won't understand. I wanna do that. I gonna do that. So that is the language of the TV. And the language of the TV and the language that we speak and work with and study in is very different. So no wonder people are not writing much, or they're writing in shorthand, like the instant messaging style. So the vocabulary comes from either reading, either paying attention to a dictionary. As children, we used to look at the dictionary and use 5 words every day. So so now these things you can learn to do even now. Even now I try and look at the dictionary to look at the concepts and the words. So every discipline, like you are an engineering student, you will have an engineering dictionary. So look at your dictionary so that you get technically equipped with the language and the words and what the words mean. Because everybody can use a lot of words, but what they really mean in the end doesn't matter because they're just talking. So that is where it becomes meaningless, as our friend just said. And for grammar to be smooth, you really have to frame full sentences, which we are not doing. So if you're writing, then also you write with and I'm sure in school you knew that a full sentence has a noun, a verb, and an object or something that you do, right? Or a noun and a verb make up the thing, and then you have an object. So but now it's I'm going. Very, very brief communication, so that cannot help. So talking, maybe you'll have to be able to hold people's attention by your tone, by the way you speak, how clearly you speak, sometimes by your non-verbal behavior. That holds people's attention. And you have to prepare to go for any conversation or any communication, oral or verbal communication. As somebody said, that framing a question. So you have to know what you want to know. Then only you can frame the question. And we can do a full session on framing questions, because when Alka and Sudha and we were doing a program, we have half a day of writing the question. Like, what is it that you want the question to be about? What is it that you want to find out? So like if I say, do you like my lecture? Now, what is the response to this? Do you like my lecture, fellows? Any response to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We like your lecture.
Okay. So then does that give me any more information?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, because it's just that I have prepared well enough and I speak loud enough and I speak clearly, I think you can understand, and I speak at a particular speed so that everybody can listen and hear. So, but then that doesn't say anything more than what I have done and what I have prepared for. But if I would say, what would you like me to do differently? Yeah. So that puts some pressure on you to find out what I should be doing differently. It's not a yes and a no or a closed question. So when you're framing a question, you have to really know what you want to know, what you want to find out from that question, and then you can frame it as an open-ended question which will give you the answers. So this writing a questionnaire is also a very important task in knowing and in the purpose of your question, and how you frame it to get what amount of information you want. So Parul, what would be your question which will get you more answers? Like what should my question be so that I can get more feedback from you? Is Parul there? Parul Ashodia?
Ma'am, am I audible to you?
Yes, Parul. Hi.
Hi, ma'am.
So what should my question be so that I can get more information about my lecture? Anybody else can start thinking. It's not just Parul who's on the spot. How can I frame my question? Because somebody said question framing is a challenge. So how should I frame my question to get more information about this conversation that we are having? Hello?
Ma'am, you can also ask us how the feedbacks. You can ask the feedbacks like you can also ask from matlab, how you can develop your communication, your lecture in future.
Yes, so make a question.
Okay.
Ma'am?
Who's that? Nivya? Yes?
Yes, ma'am, I think we can ask a specific question like, was the pace of the lecture okay? Was it fit enough for you to actually grasp whatever was spoken in class? So,
yeah, but then this is a very closed-ended question, Nivya, because was the pace okay? Yes or no?
yes, ma'am. Yeah, it doesn't give much information from me.
Yes or no? So that just gives me the first prompt. Then the next question will be, what is it that you did not grasp? Or what would have made it better? Right? So framing the question is a challenge. The first question, a yes or no question, should lead to more questioning and further questioning. Okay. So yeah, so that's one. The other would be, did my lecture satisfy your questions? That also is a closed-ended question. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Or somebody can turn around and say, you asked so many questions, but you didn't answer any. So that could be another response. So the questions that you frame should be, so you should know the objective of your question, whether it is verbal or written, or when you go to your questionnaire framing. So the objective of the question has to be very clear, which goes back to the objective of your project. So that is another thing that I worked on so that I am able to answer your questions. So basically for communication, it is not like you will wake up one day and you'll be a perfect communicator. Like, you can do that in your Nidra yoga or something like that. No, it doesn't happen. It is a matter of practice. It is a matter of real diligence and then learning to love the words and the way you ask questions and the way you answer questions, the way you write. So then like the Mistress of Spices, have you seen that movie? Anybody has seen that Aishwarya Rai movie, Mistress of Spices?
yes, ma'am.
So she starts to know the spices, she knows how the spices feel. So if you know how your words feel, whether you're a technical person or you're a writer or you're a storyteller, if you know what the words mean and if you know what the real meaning of a word is and you use it more and more, there are usages. How do you use a particular word in a particular way and where? So the way you live with the spices, like your mother never measures the spice. You just pick it up with your hand and you put it in the pot. Similarly, our words and similarly is communication and writing. So if you live with words, if you like words, and if you don't kill the words by saying, I want to do that, I'm gonna do this. I don't know how my nephew and my nieces talk, but so Even in your daily life, if you speak clearly, then you will be able to practice it easier. And with your friends, you can do whatever you do. But when you're in a particular formal setting, then you use the correct words and you are aware of the words that you're using. And what are we wanting to say? Anything that you want to say in your initial period where people were said, I like confidence, you just write down what you want to say. I'll tell you stories also because I'm quite a storyteller. So I was training members of parliament in a different country. And one of the ladies very quietly came up to me and said, madam, I have a lot to say, but I feel very shy and I don't know how to say it. And yahan par people are talking in very polished, local language. I said, koi baat nahi, you just write what you have to say and then you say it. And I said, आज शाम तक आपको 2 बार बोलना जरूरी है आज. And she was a member of parliament. So she wrote whatever she had to say. And then when she put up her hand to speak, everybody turned and looked at her. That, finally she was speaking. And then she very carefully she spoke because she had written it down and she made very good points. So it is preparation and you have to pick up some confidence and you need some mentors, and I hope that your mentors will be able to help you with that. Okay, so and you have to know your audience. If I was talking to you in Bangla right now or in Bhojpuri right now or in I don't know, any other language, Spanish right now, then I would be doing a great disservice to the communication that I am establishing with you, because I should know what you understand and what you can work with. So I cannot pick up any language and I cannot pick up to make it very esoteric. I have to speak the language because I have an objective and a purpose. Who's put up her hand? Somebody's put up their hand. So that's it. So this is answering a question. So it is not easy. Anything that you want to, it has to be practiced. So what we really want to now look at is how to ग्रामर के लिए तो प्रैक्टिस के बिना तो चलेगा नहीं ना. ग्रामर चाहे हिंदी का ग्रामर हो, चाहे अंग्रेजी का हो, चाहे किसी भी लैंग्वेज का ग्रामर हो, प्रैक्टिस करेंगे तभी होगा और अवेयरनेस के साथ प्रैक्टिस करेंगे. सो वन ऑफ द थिंग्स नाउ वी कैन कम टू राइटिंग, बिकॉज बोलने में थोड़ा इडियम्स अलग हो सकते हैं, कोलोकियल हो सकता है, लेकिन जब हम लिखते हैं व्हेन वी राइट देन इट हैज टू बी करेक्ट. सो दैट इज व्हाई आई लाइक टू राइट, बिकॉज देन I can think with the words, I can chew the words, I can check on the usage that is this the appropriate word or not. So that is where you have to start writing and start creating your grammar and your sentences. You can make very simple sentences and still be effective, and you can write very long complicated sentences and lose everybody and yourself. So then what is it difficult in writing? It will be the same, I think, because you have to have the objective of your writing clear. You have to have the what you want to achieve out of your writing, like who is the audience for your writing. If you're writing a project proposal, which Madam Alka Tomar will review, then you will have to put in, and it's a technical project, so then you have to put in a technical format and technical language to be able to write about water usage and water restoration of water bodies and things like that. So you have to use that particular language. I'm sure everybody, all of you write in English, is that right? All of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone? Okay. So then that's not a question. How often do you write? Because all of you write in English and you can think in English, because slowly you can start thinking about anything. Even your dream could be in English, right? So you come to that stage. What will you consider a good, well-written document, book, or story? That's my question to you. What do you think will hold your attention? What is a well-written document?
Yes, ma'am. A document which has a clear start, middle, and end, and it's easy to understand.
Yes. Okay. Anybody else?
In which every part connects to each other.
Yes,
We
it
are
has
not
to be
lost.
coherent. Yeah, it has to be coherent. Wonderful. Yeah. What else? It has to be done attractively as well, isn't it? If it's a big, it's sloppy, and if it's badly presented. What else? What else is a good written document? Sanjay ji, can we go to the next? Yes, somebody said simple sentences, right? So what is a simple sentence? What is a simple sentence?
Which is easier to understand with.
Can we make simple sentences? Quickly, quickly. Look at your, make simple sentences with water.
Yes, ma'am. Water is important for life. Subject,
Yes.
verb, agree. Yeah. Subject,
Okay, water is
verb, and
important for
object.
life. That's simple. Right. What else?
90% of our body is composed of water.
Yes, that's an informative sentence. That's good. Simple. Yeah. So when you do a simple, okay, Dipesh.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. What's a simple sentence? Make a sentence.
Yes, ma'am. Any sentence which has subject, verb, and object, such as
Very good. So
water
make a
is
sentence.
essential for life.
Make a sentence.
What water
You
is
studied
essential
your
for
Ren
life.
and Martin well.
Sorry.
I said you studied your grammar well. Ren and Martin we used to study.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So make a sentence.
Yeah, ma'am. Like water is important for life. That is a simple sentence.
That's your sentence. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Good.
ma'am.
So then when you make shorter sentences, then you don't get lost. Like somebody said, it has to be coherent. It has to be relevant to each other, the thoughts that you mentioned. So the sentences, if you have fewer ands and therefore and because and these linking conjunctive words, so then the sentence is shorter and you don't get lost and you are saying what you have to say more effectively and clearly. So while you write your report, especially your report, because the proposals are very brief, but even there, you have to have one main sentence or one main clause, which has a noun or a verb, a verb, and an object, perhaps, right? And then you can have other clauses added to it with an and therefore to just support the first sentence that you have said or the first clause that you have said. A clause can be independent also. Water is important for life because something. Yeah, or water is 90% body. 90% of our bodies is water. Therefore, we have to replenish, the water levels in our body. So the first sentence, the first part can really stand alone. So practice that. If you write simple sentences in your report, you will be able to make less work for Alka ji and Sanjay bhaiya and Sudha madam. Okay, so I just put it down for you. Short sentences with fewer and, therefore, because, and so on will be easier and more understandable and coherent and logical. One main clause, also known as independent clause, it can stand by itself, or a superordinate clause or a base clause, is a group of words made up of a subject, a predicate, that together explains a complete concept. Like our body, human body, or our bodies are made up of 90% water. That stands alone. Hence we have to, therefore we have to, therefore in summer season we must be drinking more water, or we must pay attention to rehydrating ourselves. So the first part is an independent sentence. It stands alone. It can, it's an independent clause, a superordinate clause, and then the rest of it is something that builds up on it, right? Is that clear? Am I confusing you more than you already are? Yes or no? No communication?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
You're not confused?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. So please be simple. Please be simple as you write. And think of, okay, that we'll go to the next one. So the basic rule of thumb is to make sure the most important information goes into the main clause, while the information that ties things together by providing description and other nuances get placed as dependent clauses. Like the 90% water constitutes body. The body is constituted by 90% water. So that's the main clause. Hence, during the summer and the rainy season, we must replenish our water intake, or we must keep continuously rehydrate our bodies. So these are other things that just reinforce the fact that 80%, 90% body water has to be maintained. Like I was in Assam in one very rainy time of the year, and I was sweating so much, and I was doing an inspection and an evaluation. I was sweating so much that I could almost collapse. So the important thing was that 90% of my body's fluid was in disbalance. So I had to take more fluids so to be well. So you have to think of a situation, and then you have to create the main clause, the main sentence, and then the others just add on to that. And this I very quickly thought to make it simple. I'm just quoting you the source that I got it from. Sanjay ji, dusra wala slide. So is that clear? First part of effective writing is to be very clear in your writing. Clear? And not make too many clauses. And therefore, because तो एक sentence जो है वो 20 sentences में बन जाता है, and that confuses people and loses the impact. So that's it. In a sentence structure, the simple subject is the who, what, and where. That comprises the main focus. The predicate is the part of the sentence that gives the action. So I just tried, because you're dealing with water and I don't know if these are good sentences. Will you help me to find out? So examine these sentences I made for you this afternoon. People have to walk far for water because there is no potable water nearby, maybe, yeah? Girl children do not go to school because they have to fetch water from far. Water sources are very far from the village, therefore girl children drop out from school. So which of these is a better sentence, or which will you grade as 1, 2, 3? Hello? Anybody? Hello? Are we timed out? Hello?
I think first one is the simplest.
First one is the simplest. Why is it the simplest?
Because the meaning is clear.
The meaning is clear. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And it is understandable in just one read, one go.
Okay. And what about the second one?
Second one, I will rank second.
Why?
And because first the children are not going to school because they need to fetch water. As it is relating two cases.
Yes. What are the two problems that come out of this?
Firstly, the girl child are not able to go to school. Secondly, they have to go far to fetch water.
Okay. All right. And the third one is a little bit, complex, yeah? Because it doesn't very clearly say or build up the relationship.
It is not clear, ma'am.
Yeah. I was trying to build up some examples of titles that tell you the problem itself, right? So the first one also, they have to walk far for water because there's no potable water. So if you take that as a topic, as a title of your topic, then you will have to find objectives according to that. The girl children do not go to school, so then there's a girl children problem. They don't go to school problem. There's no water close by is the problem. Then there could be a problem not stated here is that the security of the girl children is compromised. or they become insecure, or they are not safe. So if you look at sentences, and the sentence should be able to tell you, so then there'll be a next sentence to explain what the girl children do not go to school because they have far to go to fetch water. So you have to explain that. So that is the reason why you have to be very clear in the sentences, and because is the link there. Otherwise, it can easily say girl children don't go to school, or people have to walk far for water. But we add the dependent clause because there is no potable water. Otherwise, people have to walk far for water is quite adequate. But then you just add a simple clause saying, so because there is so the moment you add because and therefore, so then you have to have simple answers to that, and don't extend that more than that. Okay, next slide, please. Anybody else would want to respond to that? No. Okay, plan your writing and task assignment, because without planning you cannot do effective writing. And most of the times you have to give at least 2 drafts to yourself. So one is the first draft that you put everything together, and then you have to review what you write. Like you have to do the project outline, for example. Now give yourself some time. You cannot just do it right away. So ये नहीं कि आज रात को मैं करके भेज दूंगा कल, ऐसे नहीं होगा. You will have to prepare for it because there's a lot of background work that you have to do. So, and then that is where you will make mistakes that you can easily avoid. And give yourself 2 drafts. एक रात को खुद में कर लिया, फिर अगले दिन उसको देखा. You will always change the next draft because there'll always be things that you will find errors in it. You can find, you can rephrase the sentences and things like that. So you have to give yourself 2 drafts before you send it to your mentors or to Center for Youth. And then review what you write. Always don't think that you are masters and you will just do it. You have to review what you write, otherwise it will not be acceptable to people. Sanjay ji, next fella. So what is concisely and precisely? You have to write concisely and precisely. Concise is जो हिंदी जानते हैं गागर में सागर. You put in exactly what you want to say, and you choose the words correctly so that it conveys what you want to say, rather than making it many words और क्या निकला तो कुछ भी मतलब नहीं निकला उसमें से. तो कंसाइज लिखना चाहिए जिसमें कि कम बातों में ज्यादा चीजें समझ में आ जाएं, और प्रिसाइसली कि जो हमको कहना है कि भाई girl children are not going to school, and that is what I want to convey. And the reason why they are not going to school is because they have to go and fetch water. So this is precisely what I wanted to say. So concisely and precisely go together mostly. So, and it is a matter of practice. बहुत ज़्यादा शब्दों में कुछ भी बात कहने से वो बात emphasis shift हो जाता है. When you're describing things, because you're doing a project, so you will have to describe the venue that you're doing, the location of your project. But you have to be very clever and you have to know what you want to convey, because मैं इस कमरे को ही जहाँ मैं बैठी हूँ उसी को डिस्क्राइब करने के लिए मैं बहुत कुछ कह सकती हूँ, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा क्या महत्वपूर्ण है वो ये है कि दिस इज अ कंफर्टेबल रूम, this is a quiet room, this is a clean room, and well lit room. लेकिन वैसे ही जैसे कि अगर हम कहें कि पानी नहीं है जहाँ बच्चे पानी लेने जाते हैं, वहाँ पे अकेली जगह है, it's a lonely spot, it is very far, it is uninhabited. So you have to describe the place not with your fantasy, but with the tools that you will that will help you in identifying the problem that you're looking at. तो but ये story जब लिखते हैं तो हम बहुत कुछ fantasize कर सकते हैं, लेकिन जब हम किसी specific purpose के लिए लिख रहे हैं तो उस जगह को भी describe करने के लिए we should be very specific. We should be able to convey in fewer words what the challenges in that place are. As somebody had said earlier, the analysis, especially when you're analyzing, you're using data and you're using facts, and they have to be logical and coherent. And what is logical and coherent? Can somebody help me to answer that? What is logical and coherent? कोहेरेंस में होगा आप जो नेसेसरी इंफॉर्मेशन है उसको आप डालेंगे. You put in the necessary information in each paragraph. So paragraphs have one central idea or information, and that is what you explain. You do not repeat the information time and again कि जगह भरनी है, number of words पूरे करने हैं तो बार बार repeat करते रहो, वो coherence को नहीं करता. How do you organize it? How do you organize? And what is the relevance of what you're writing? So that becomes the logic and the coherent, because that is checked when you're writing a report. Logical है कि नहीं, एक चीज दूसरे पर build up कर रही है कि नहीं, और दूसरी बात कि इसमें समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं और सारे facts हैं कि नहीं. Include the necessary information in each section. Do not repeat. Put the right part in the right place. Conform to the length of the guidelines and keep the focus. क्योंकि अगर 200 वर्ड लिखना है तो 200 वर्ड ही लिखना होगा, तो उस हिसाब से you have to keep the focus and then weave it around. So the first thing is to identify what the focus will be. So here in your project you will be answering all the questions that you will have in your objective, or the way you set up your objective or your hypothesis. Then you will have to write according, the report will be processed and the analysis will be done according to your objectives. संजय जी दूसरा वाला. Next slide please. Okay, and then to cut a very long story short, we all use this. Sometimes we used to use the books, they were in book form, but now it is all available online. So use the thesaurus. If there is a word like dehydration, then you look at the thesaurus and find out what else can be substituted for that. And the thesaurus leads you to other interesting ways of explaining things, or especially adverbs and adjectives and verbs. And you have to be very creative and explore your verbs, because verbs and adjectives make a big difference. Don't put in too much of explanation for a word. Get the exact verb and the spell check. And both of these are available in in MS Word. So use that and keep that on. And best of writers use the thesaurus. We still use the book thesaurus, but you can still go back to your MS Word. वो side में आके खुल जाता है. Then there is this app Grammarly, which helps you to check the spellings and the grammar automatically, but you may not like to do it automatically. So you because sometimes practice. So if you choose the UK version, then it will be a difference between practice and practice, because PRATICE is the noun and PRATISE is the verb. तो अगर आप UK grammar करेंगे तो you will get these differentiations, whereas if you go into the US, which is more relaxed and easy, then it is all practice. It is not PRATIC. कोई फर्क नहीं है उसमें. So so you have to really be aware of which language, even if it is English, which version of English or which kind of English are you using is important. And and then, you know, the biggest help that will be in writing well, because it will take away your stress, is to set up the style of the report that you will use, because then it gets into a format, and then you're not worrying about the paragraphs and the page breaks and things like that, and what is it called, the references. So set up your report style, and I'm sure there is a prescribed style which you will be adopting. So use that. So once you set up your report and the sections of the report, you can easily then you can pay attention to the writing and to the words, because otherwise half the time the report format gets destroyed. So with that, Yeah. So any more questions till then? Because it's gone really fast.
No, ma'am, no questions.
Is it very clear? So all of you can write well and communicate well now from tomorrow?
After practicing.
You have to practice, right?
Yeah.
And some of the things in practice is like संजय जी जो हमने पहले भेजा था ना, वो वाला आप दिखा देंगे थोड़ा सा प्लीज, कम्युनिकेशन के अलावा जो भेजा था उसमें एग्जांपल्स मिलेंगे थोड़े बहुत. Nice to see all of you.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
I had a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, when we talk about using simple language, so that's very appropriate. That's I agree with. However, when we look at like research papers or say environment laws, so we know that they use a lot of jargons, etc. So, I think we all might have to switch to those technical words at some point or the other. So, how will we be using this technique of simple language then?
Very good.
I'm a little bit confused.
Good that you ask, because all every discipline has its own set of technical words, right? And how to explain it. So of course there will be jargon is a colloquial way of saying it, but then there are technical terms and then there are technical concepts, right? There are concepts and then there are technical terms. So of course you have to use it, but if you are using it, even when you're using technical language and technical terms, it has to be understandable to the audience. We talked about the audience. Who are you communicating with? If that particular project proposal or the project report is for thank you, Sanjay. If that project report is for disseminating to the stakeholders, for example, right? Like to the community. For example, it's a water project, right? Or the girl child, or using, what was it? Making rain harvested water portable for people, for example, right? So you'll use certain technologies and certain ways of doing it. So if you're doing it with the water company, you will use a different word, you'll use a different set of technical terms and information presentation. And that is where the presentation will come when Alka madam was talking about, like the case studies and the blogs and the fact sheets. So the fact sheet that you will give to the Ministry of Water Works will be different from the fact sheet that you will give me as the president of the RWA in Delhi. Because I can't understand the technical terms, you will have to simplify it for me. But water and technology mission or whatever mission that is, or the water purifier maker, or the rain water harvesting technology people, that you will use a different, but the body of your research will be the same. But the information that you give, Jyotsna Roy, the RWA president, will be very different. Madam, the water will be done like this, and we will give you 3 chemicals in 3 different colors, and you will use it. But you can use all the chemical names with the scientists and the technical people. So it is to the audience that you are speaking to, Ujjwal. It is so if you're speaking to audience, lay audience, as somebody said, as one of your stakeholders, because if I don't, rainwater harvesting in urban conglomerates, if that is something that you have to do, you have to talk to a person like me who is not a technical person. Then you have to make the same research study understandable for me. So so people do one big research and then they have to do different kinds of presentations. So fact sheet बनाओगे, blog बनाओगे, case study लिखोगे, government के लिए आप एक report बनाओगे. So for these you have to have different words, and so to be able to answer your question, each audience or each reader or each stakeholder will require a different form or version of the same report that Ujjwal will make as a technical water person. Is that understandable to everyone? Thank you, Ujjwal, for asking that question.
All right, ma'am. Thank you.
And that is where this whole effort is, to build up that, and then to, there are people who will help you with doing different versions, but you should know what you want in that, and then maybe somebody can write it for you, or maybe somebody can help you to write, an editor, because the best storytellers, the best novelists have people who edit. So we can help with editing, but the way you present it should require the least of editing. That's the idea. Okay? Any more questions? संजय जी इसका scroll कीजिए थोड़ा सा.
In fact,
yeah. Okay.
Jyotsna, this point that is just coming to me,
yeah,
I wanted to communicate to the fellows is, when you're developing your documents, why don't you show it to each other and take feedback so that what you submit is really, all the points that are required are covered. You can do that. You're fine. You don't. It's not a top secret document. At the end of the day, everybody will see what you're submitting. The final documents are available for everybody.
Yeah. Peer review. We call it peer review, right?
Yeah.
That's a good thought. And people, especially people who are doing similar projects, they can consult each other and then give it to another person who's not doing a similar project. Is that understandable to that person? Yeah. So that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, the point is, if you're doing similar projects, the peer review is majorly other fellow designates who are not doing similar projects.
Exactly.
So that you get more inputs. Otherwise, what happens is, if they have similar projects, you will say, okay, you wrote that, the copy paste will happen. But that is what I meant. I meant that your flow and your writing skills are improvised when you get very constructive feedback, though it will come from us quite regularly, but peer learning is also very, very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing is, when you said cut and paste, and I think I put it somewhere, I don't know where, maybe it's in the last bit of that thing, is that you have to be guarding against plagiarism. You cannot, because when you do a thesis, like even your master's thesis, you must have seen that there are these, you can only have 10% of plagiarism. You do your test and it immediately tells you how much plagiarized it is. So yeah, plagiarism doesn't work. Now all the tools are helping in catching the people who are plagiarizing and cutting and pasting majorly for their work. संजय जी एकदम आखिर तक जाइए, फिर देखते हैं, because that is where I did some in the literature review, for example. I will just leave this with you, Alka, because I put some definitions here as well. Sanjay ji ऊपर जाइए. Yeah, I think this is also the same. और ऊपर. The other thing is, whenever you write, you have to नीचे और नीचे. Yeah, that's it. So the other thing is about writing, because you are going to do technical writing. So I think right from the beginning, you should start working on how you're going to, keep filing away your references and the reading that you do. Don't do too much reading, because you'll get, so all that maybe has already been covered. But I did all this exercise to be able to talk to you and to be able to answer any questions that you may have. So this is the way. So you will be given a particular way of referencing, and I'm sure people who've done their masters and their MPhils will know that better than I do. So this is something that you must conform to and start from the very beginning. So that will take away from the plagiarism and all that, because anything that you quote or any concept that you use, you have to have a source, whether it is a reference or a citation, or it's part of a bibliography which is not referenced in the in the project that you're doing actually. So I just used a few examples of one is from the net, one is online, one is a book that the two others are books that I have. So this second one doesn't have an author, but it is a organization that produced it. So the organization is referenced. So if you put all these things in order, then it will already take care a lot of your writing anxieties. So then you have systems to fill in. Yeah. Okay. संजय जी और ऊपर और कहाँ था? एक second. Any other questions? Because otherwise I'll start teaching you how to write. So these are all concepts that I have, because you will find them. So I just thought I should make it easier, because any word has a huge amount of, it's a concept. There is a whole science behind it. And then I particularly picked up innovation, efficiency, effectiveness, impact, outcome, output, input, what else? So all these concepts I've dealt with, and what you were saying is that we start to stutter and stammer, but if you get clear in your concepts, then you will not stutter and stammer, and you will be able to defend what you're saying. You will be able to argue when you are presenting your project report or your project proposal as well, when you're defending your proposal. So because I find it very useful to have these concepts, because they are the key words that will be referred to in your project proposal and your report actually. And the challenge is to be innovative, huh? So you have to be innovative, because you're looking for innovative, and so with innovation will come new vocabulary. So don't worry about, the more you read, the more you talk, the more you practice writing, the more your vocabulary gets embedded in you, and you live with the vocabulary. Like that example I gave, the sabzi that we make at home, we don't go to how to measure in a spoon or how to do what. We know exactly how it will taste when we put that particular masala. So the words are your masalas, and I'm using a very homegrown and sudden inspiration that I have. So the words are the masalas, the technique is how you use it, like how the temperature and all that when you're cooking. So so creating a book is also like creating a very delicious meal, really. So all the ingredients has to be proportionate. So you have to, sentences have to be not so long. And if you have to explain something, put the first important part of that idea first, and then explain it in two or three, maybe two subordinate clauses, and then you can make another sentence. तो ज़्यादा लंबा मत करिएगा. और innovation का जरा, you just look at the definitions. So get Alka madam and Sudha madam and Sanjay sir and your partners to freeze your concepts, because if your concepts are clear, you'll be able to frame good objectives. And if your objectives are good, then your approach and your methodology will be good. And what is the difference between an approach and a methodology? That's also part of writing. The approach, I would have taken it away, but then you people are all postgraduates, I think. So the approach is what you want to achieve, what you want to do at a philosophical level, what you believe in, what your value will be. That will help your approach. And the methods and the methodology will come from the approach that you want. If it's a humanistic approach, then you will say, oh, the girl children should not, or the men and the women of a particular community in Gujarat should not walk for 3 miles to get water. No. It's a human right, so they should get water in. So that is your approach. The human rights approach is your approach, right? And for that you will have the methodology of canvassing for it, advocacy for it, research for it, struggle for it, getting project sanctioned for it. So these will be part of the methodology. If you have a profit approach, then you will say, okay, this is the input, this is the output, and this is the profit that I will make. So your methodology will change. So the approach that you will adopt is will determine the way your paper, your proposal will be. If you have what approach? Any other approach? If you have a very technical approach, like we say, oh, this person is completely technical, इसको community से कुछ लेना देना ही नहीं है, तो participatory approach नहीं है. So then, what is the participatory approach? It takes a bit longer. You involve all the stakeholders. So if you have a participatory approach, then your methodology will be different. It will be more time consuming. It will be more engaging, and you have to prepare to work with the field as well as the technical people as well as the government agencies. Because all the stakeholders are involved in a participatory approach. If it is like the present education system, that is an approach. That is like गुरु शिष्य खाली कर दिया कि गुरु जी जो बोलेंगे वो शिष्य याद कर लेगा और फिर उसको जाकर रिप्रोड्यूस कर देगा अपने एग्जाम में. But if you have a more, if you change the pedagogy, then it becomes a more reflective, more critical thinking, more experiential, like now what students are being made to do. But in most places it is like, you know, people are just putting it into our heads. We are just regurgitating it in our exam, learning by rote. रट्टा मार के पढ़ लिया और जाके एग्जाम में लिख दिया, तो उसमें ना दिमाग लगता है ना कुछ, खाली आपकी याददाश्त अच्छी होनी चाहिए. But if you change the pedagogy, if you make it more experiential, if you make it more reflective, then there's more work to do, and there are different methods then. So your approach will determine your methodology. Your methodology will determine the methods and the instruments that you will use, and which will help you to write better and to be more concise and precise and coherent. That's what writing needs to be all about. Questions? Fellows have gone to sleep. They need a cup of tea, I think. Okay, if you have any questions, I will be available, and I think you can always come back to me through C4Y, Center for Youth. Anything else I can help you with, I'll be happy to help out. And if you have any questions, just send it to me through Sanjay sir. Sanjay sir is the bigger, person to catch for everything.
If Jyotsna Di, we can, outline wise, if topic by topic, we can explain that what we are anticipating in that, and how do you write that?
Project outline.
Because you did cover some, and if you know that, we can talk about in for another 10 minutes. You want to project that?
Not it's. Oh, I thought. Oh, yeah. I'm not paying attention to the times. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So can we just go back to the slide that the presentation that you had? Because what I did because I wanted to know what I'm talking about, and communication is about knowing what you want to talk about. So I went through the first part, which is the project out, in this document, fellow deliverable guidelines. So I went through the project outline for Water Smart Solution Project. And I went step by step, and I just went one by one, as Alka ji says. So we can do that. संजय जी वो स्लाइड लगा दी, वो प्रेजेंटेशन लगा दो आप, फिर उस पर सवाल आएंगे तो फिर. Any questions till Sanjay sir puts up the presentation? सवाल पूछने से ही आंसर्स आते हैं, पता है? Learn to ask questions. When Alka and Sudha and others were doing a training program, the moment they would say something, they would always know that there'll be another question. ये है, अच्छा तो फिर ये है, तो फिर then why, then how, then what, so there'll be questions all the time. So don't feel shy of asking questions. संजय जी, ये दूसरा वाला जो है ना, ये तो राइटिंग वाला है. जिसमें बहुत सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स है ना, उसमें मैंने सब डाल दिया था. इसके जो आपने लास्ट लगाया था वो. इसके पहले वाला नहीं, पूरी प्रेजेंटेशन ही जो मैंने सेकंड लास्ट भेजी थी ना.
Yeah, he's projecting it right now.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So what I have here is, of course, all of you know your names, and the college, name of partner organization, about the partner. Okay. You know, the project title is one of the things that everybody wants to struggle, and I did that also once upon a time. So you start writing the project title first, but then that is that a good way of going about it? Project title pehle likh liya. How would you go about it? Would you write the project title first?
No, ma'am.
No? Why?
Ma'am, we should first write the literature review. Then, according to that, we have to give the title to our research.
What in the literature review tells you to put the title for the research? You said the right, not there's no right and wrong answer. Yeah, Sanjay ji, इसके शुरू से ही चलते हैं, इसी में शुरू से. So there are no right and wrong answers, but yeah, so you said, of course, that we should do the literature review. For what reason?
Ma'am, because title is something which is going to explain our research work.
Okay.
So, अगर वो attractive होगा तो people will read it out.
हाँ, ठीक बात. So then, your earlier fellow said that we should do the literature review before we write the title. Why should you do the literature review before you write the title?
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, I think it's because when we go through the literature review, we'll understand more about the work that has been done in that field. So we'll be able to decide more accurately our field of research and what we want to, our objective through that project. So that will be able to help us design our project title much better.
Okay, all right. Okay. So I just thought I'll go from the very beginning, because there are many kinds of research, and a lot of what you are doing is really will be doing is action research or applied research, because you're not doing an academic philosophical work. You're not looking at concepts and theories, but you're looking at application of technology and application of an approach, whichever approach you adopt. So I just thought looking at action research, it supports practitioners in seeking out ways in which they can provide enhanced quality of healthcare, water, or whatever, with this purpose in mind. The following features are worthy of consideration. Okay, let's see what the following features are. Sanjay ji, next wala. Action research is a method that is used for improving practice. It involves action, evaluation, critical reflection based on evidence gathered. Then we suggest changes, and then they are implemented. So this is what basically you're going to do, I think. That first you will do your evaluation, you'll do your whatever is going on, you will evaluate that. Then you can think about what are the gaps, and then you will do some critical reflection to come up with your objectives and hypotheses, and then you will gather evidence. You'll do your project work or your field work if you need to do that. Then you will come up with the smart solutions, and then hopefully it will be implemented. Okay, next. So then that was just a background, I thought. And then the title. So I was just thinking about what a title should look like. So the title should be precise, clear and accurate, small details too, concise, lot of information in few words, should convey the entire intent of the project. It conveys the main goal of the project work and the deliverables. A good title will give an idea of what the project is all about, makes the readers curious and interested and want to read. It should not be descriptive or elaborate. As I said, the descriptive part is only the place where you describe your environment or the location of your study or the universe of your study. And that too is not a story or not a poem. It's like describing what you're looking at and which you would seek to change. So it is not so elaborate. It is written with the play of words, IAS, the arrangement of words that that make it interesting, right? And sometimes people use a reference to a film or a title. Sometimes it makes it interesting, but maybe you will not. But like one of the things that I thought about was the film Swadesh. You know, if you're doing a social development project, we would say, you know, like looking at the project, looking at the Swadesh film, looking at the development projection or the description or depiction of social development through Shah Rukh Khan's Swadesh film, or examining how stupid or how, you know, glamorized it was. So similarly, so you can make it attractive if you have some local references or local, even local or films or books, like washing of hands. So I was just reading somewhere that washing of hands in Macbeth. Macbeth is the play, Shakespearean play. So there is a lot of washing of hands there, but we are also washing our hands a lot in the COVID period. And people are also washing their hands off. This is getting a bit political, Alka, I'm sorry, but people are washing off their hands of all the mistakes that were made when COVID was raging and people were dying. So washing of hands is very symbolic. And in Macbeth, Lady Macbeth was washing her hands many times because there was blood on her hands. So let's not get into that question. So we can always make references to something like that, which already conveys a whole story and puts some meat and some substance to what we want to do. So it can be an indicative thing. So this is just an interesting aside. Next slide, Sanjay ji. So that's the title. Any questions on the title? Okay, we'll come back to that again. And this is like the titles and the anything else that will be done will be sourced from the thematic areas that are laid out by Center for Youth, right? And that even the host organization is agreed to that. So based on these, you will pick up an area and then you'll go to the problem statement of the thematic areas. Next slide, please. So what is acceptable title according to thematic areas and why? So I just tried to develop some thematic areas, some titles, right? I was also playing along while I was trying to prepare for it. So I said, okay, so these are some of the titles that I've come up with. Alka, will you pass any of these titles?
Thanks, Didi. Pass means?
No, but I'm just saying, will you, if you look at these titles and if they were submitted to you, will this title be acceptable to anybody, or do we, and this is for everyone, I'm just mentioning Alka madam because she is the boss right now, but everybody else, all fellows, are these titles good enough, or do we need to change them, or do we need to tweak them? These are from the thematic areas.
Yeah, so any title is acceptable. It should convey what the project all about.
Yes.
And okay, we need to understand that this is the project. If
Yes.
I read, I say, okay, it's a sheet flow diagram, then is a sheet flow diagram, I understand that. Or it's about a title about water accessibility or drinking water accessibility to people, differently able people. So I understand this is the project about them. So title has to be definitely interesting, but convey the overall nutshell of the project that we're doing.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay, when we come to titles, when we are actually framing titles, then we will be able to answer this one, right? Sanjay ji, next wala. Okay, so this is the problem statement related to how do you develop the problem statement, and this is where, yes, number 4, this is problem statement according to the thematic areas. So we'll have to think about what is the problem, why is this a problem worth my attention, and at the same time the problem statement. Okay, so these are the 2 questions that you will ask if you're looking towards a particular problem, because when you see a problem, then only you start looking at the literature. You're not doing an academic work. So when you see a problem, you want to address the problem, then you go back and start looking at the literature as to what best way or how you will address it. Isn't that right, Alka?
Absolutely. In fact, I think problem statement is, yes, what is the problem, as Jyotsna is saying, but also, you need to justify that this is the problem.
Exactly.
And that will come with your facts, with your literature review, and with whatever baseline data that is available.
Yeah. And this is not, all this thing doesn't happen chronologically. Normally you do, but it doesn't happen chronologically. You're looking at a problem, then you are also looking at some literature, you're flipping through newspapers and other sources and saying, this is a real problem. So because of this, I want to investigate this, and I want to study this, and I want to propose solutions for that.
In fact, if I can just add here, that because these projects are majorly from the partners, organization projects, or initiatives, a lot of material is already available, because if like WaterAid or any other partner has developed a project and they are working into it, so all work has been done by them. It just needs to add into the particular framework and add just more information which will make sense.
Okay. So that's a lot of pre-work already done, and they will know what needs to be addressed. Yeah, okay, that's good. But even then, you have the problem statement will limit the focus, right? Will give you the focus of the project, this particular project that our fellows will do. So if you make a very precise and an appointed, focused problem statement, then the work that the fellows will do will be very productive and will yield results. Otherwise, they will go in all different directions. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And once we have done this and the literature review, then the title comes out. And that is what one of the fellows said very, very wisely at the very beginning, that once we did the literature review and the problem statement, then we can formulate the title which will convey what we want to do. So yes, she has anticipated this. Okay, next. This is from my own research training. So this and because I tried to look at it in a project context, but this could be a bit more academic, I don't know. So let's see if we can accept this. But again, the project outline, it's because it is only 250 words, we have to be very aware that 250 words is a limitation, but it is not too few. It is just adequate to convey the theme and the focus of your work. So find out the key idea that is central to the project, and so that will be the steps that you will do. Write it down clearly. What makes it central? So you have to do the next explanation. Why is it important? So if you answer these questions, you will be able to get a project outline in 250 words, because then you're not adding too much of extra information, because it has to be very concise. What do you propose to do? What innovative solutions you may expect, because this is just a proposal yet, and how will these change the situation that you are addressing? Yeah. Okay, next. Now the literature review, because this is an interesting part, because some people may start looking at literature review as a very huge exercise. It is It can be, but for a PhD, you review 50 documents, 50 books. But for your proposal, I think you can think about limiting your research, your review of literature. So look at what is expected in the, so look at the earliest one, like when did this whole problem start to get discussed? So look at the earlier ones, like from, from maybe 1990, first time it was addressed. So you can just make a mention as to how basic the problem was once upon a time and how complex it has become now. So just a reference to the earlier ones and to be able to say that this has been continuing, and then you go to the most recent ones. Don't go back to 1980, 1955, 1960. वो करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. सबसे पहले जहाँ जिक्र हुआ उसका वो लेखें आप, और उसके बाद जो लेटेस्ट है उसको देखें, जिससे, because that is from where you are beginning. You are not going to start this whole thing again. Then look at the latest research from books, reports, government, all these are sources, blogs, films, videos, personal communication. Because maybe somebody has written to me saying this is a big problem, and so that is still in the file somewhere, so you can look at that. Formal communication, newspaper, journals, etc. And also now you can look at YouTube, and then this new thing, Vimeo or whatever. So these also address, there are people who are putting out a lot. Like what I have seen a lot from is Amir Khan's Pani Foundation. उनके बहुत सारे videos डाले हुए हैं, and they do all these community mobilization and all that. तो उसके भी बहुत videos मैंने देखे, तो I thought that is a good source. So next. Okay, then the key, so when you're writing the review, again it is about writing and communicating. The literature review, because of your project limitations of your number of pages, I think there must be a maximum number of pages. So don't make your literature review very thick and fat and number of pages. The key ideas and the conclusions of the particular literature that is being reviewed. If it's an article, what did the article say, and what did it recommend, or what was the problem that it addressed, things like that. Then you have to note the author from the very beginning. How did you think of the keywords that may describe? So the literature review, even in the academic area, they say just look at what you want to find and make a synthesis of it in the end. Paraphrase it into what you want to say. Don't just copy it. Just don't copy the text from the book, but paraphrase it, say it in your own words, do an analysis of what they are saying, and then you write it in the review. You also look at the author and the title, so you start compiling your references already, and think of and how did you find the literature? Think of the keywords that may describe the problem that you wish to address. Then you will find your literatures. Next. Okay, then once the literature review is done, and maybe not more than 2.5 pages, because that's what your project would look like, would need, I think, to inform itself. And then, of course, the presentation of the literature review also has, as you said earlier, introduction, the body, and then what is the conclusion from that, and what are the gaps that are emerging from that, which will then form your objective and your hypothesis. Okay, so then we go to the goals and the objectives. The goals are the outcomes that are intended. They are the larger ones. They are like the ones in the approach, in the methodology. The goal will be people will have potable drinking water, or whatever be, whatever be the larger objective for that. And then the objectives are the ones that you will be testing or working with in your field work. So the objectives are the end results that are to be accomplished through this project over a specific period of time, and they need to be very, very specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be something that you can achieve or attain. They should be relevant, and they should be time bound. And I'm sure you're aware of this SMART acronym. So how does So how would a specific objective look like? How would it? So a specific objective would be, uh, the one that you talked about, the shit load, like establishing a system of excreta management, which takes away maybe 50% of the excreta in XYZ community by the end of 3 years, maybe, to set up a system like that. So it has to be relevant to the community that you, or to the project that you're taking, the objective of the goal that you're setting, the gap that you want to address. It has to be measurable. That is, you put percentages or numbers, attainable, how you will do it, and then relevant to the gap that you want to address, and within what time, within 1 month, 2 months, 3 years, whatever. So it has to be measurable and relevant. Okay. Next, the objectives are a method to design the project that accurately and comprehensively address the needs, problems that are to be addressed. So it is the specificity, the relevance, the attainability that we are talking about here. And it is not a shopping list. You cannot think कि ये भी कर लें, ये भी कर लें, ये भी कर लें, ये भी कर लें तो अच्छा है. नहीं, 2 या 3 objective इस proposal के लिए 2 objectives would be really ideal, because more than that you can't handle. So one object, and then it could be one topmost, and then one that helps in fulfilling the second one or the first one. So ज़्यादा shopping list नहीं करना है, आपका time limited है, and you have also the, like for example, the project that Center for Youth is doing, it is relevant, it is specific to water and water challenges. It has time, it is for 4 months. It is measurable because there are 10 or 15 fellows who will produce XY, who will produce a blog, a case study, and this. So all these are measurable. All these are time bound. All these are specific. So even looking at this project, if you know what the project is, then it has all the smart indicators that we are talking about as an objective. It is not a shopping list कि हम 4 साल में हम पूरे दिल्ली का वाटर सिस्टम ठीक कर देंगे या पूरे उत्तराखंड का वाटर सिस्टम हम मैनेज कर देंगे. ये नहीं है. ये है कि बस जहाँ जहाँ हम हैं उस लोकल एरिया में हमारे फेलोज what will they do and how will they work with the partner organizations whose entire objective we are not going to fulfill. We are just going to fulfill what that specific objective is, which the fellows will do. So this project itself is a very good example of very clear objectives which have the smart indicators. It's not a shopping list. Okay, next. I just mentioned it earlier, so the approach and the methodology we've already spoken about. It is like a humanitarian, technical, systemic, management, profit, non-participative, patriarchal. If like the girl child has to go to fetch water, why? I was working in Gujarat after the earthquake in 2001, and the whole place, I was located in Bhuj for 6 months, and all the time I would see that the boys would have some temporary schools. So they would be going to class, but the girls would be going long distances to get water. And the boys would be just going around. It was March and April because I was there. And they would go around just just picking mango, kacha, raw mango from the trees. So that's a patriarchal setup. So that patriarchal setup doesn't allow the girls to do the same thing as the boys were doing, or the boys to go and fetch water, because ye aadmiyon ka kaam nahi tha. So if it's a patriarchal approach, then the whole system of social interrelationships is different. So that's an example that it just came to mind. So the approach determines the methodology that will be adopted, and the methodology then focuses the action. How will we achieve the solution to the problem that is guided by an approach. So if your approach is to look at a technical resolution for a problem that is creating unhygienic situations in pin code area 93 or whatever that is, or 86. I worked in Northeast Delhi for another reason, and you cannot walk there. So if your objective is to work to have technical solutions to the sewage there, so it's a technical solution. So your methodology will be very technical, and you will have to use either your either hardware, software, designing, whatever. So that becomes a technical approach, and the methodology will be the same. So the approach and the methodology match. Then the methodology determines the methods and the instruments that you will use. Next, please. So I've already said it. So the methodology, if it's a technical approach, then the tools will be technical. If it is getting the community to keep the community water resource safe, then it will be more participative. Then your tools will be more of interaction, consultation, focus group discussions, and things like that. So those will be the tools that you will, methods that you will choose. So actually the approach determines the method and the methodology. And there's a difference between the methodology and the methods. Okay, then we just go to the concepts. There were different concepts that were mentioned. Next, Sanjay ji, next. तो अब ये concepts हैं, मैं इनको explain नहीं करूँगी. I'm not going to explain these because I use these concepts a lot. So we can use examples like what is efficiency? Efficiency is when you reduce the loss. Like the amount of money, like the return on investment is the efficiency. The return on human resource deployment is the efficiency. And if you don't use it well, then you are not efficient. So it is efficiency is looking at the expenditure or the losses or the uses of an ability of the project to achieve the results. Effectiveness is how the systems and the relationships work. The ability to produce the right goods, services for the end users. How all this is efficiently used. So the effectiveness will be to engage the community, to consult the community when we are doing a technical intervention. That will make it more effective. If you just, like the hand pumps are a good example. The people from the water health department go and they just say, सारे water pumps road के side में लगा दो. वो water pumps effective नहीं होंगे क्योंकि उनका इस्तेमाल नहीं होगा और वो efficiency नहीं होगी because you have lost all the resources like the toilets on the roadside, like the pumps on the roadside where people don't use it. So that's the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Effective है जब उसका इस्तेमाल end users करेंगे. When the end users are using it, taking advantage of it, getting benefits, then it is effective. Efficient hai when the resources are deployed wisely and sensibly and rationally, not politically. Okay, next. Then we talk about outcomes and outputs. This comes straight from the objectives that we set up. So the outcomes are things that happen beyond us also. Like for example, when you're working with a partner organization, you are making just one intervention, but there are other interventions that are going on also. So then the outcomes will be the result of all those interventions. But your output will be that you will tell them how to manage the excreta from Anupam Apartments complex to the wherever it is processed. I don't know where it is processed. So like that. So that will be the output. You will have one very specific service in quantity and quality that will be provided through the input. So your input will be this design, or we are losing a lot of rainwater. So how do we harvest that water? So your input will tell us this technology you can use, Jyotsna ji, to harvest water for using for non-potable purposes. So that will be your output. And the end user is who will ultimately benefit from the use by themselves or by any other. and the input is all the resources that the project will require that you may use for effective achievement of the objectives. So all this, you know what, when I'm thinking about it, all this is going to make your communication more effective if you understand these concepts, and if you use them wisely and diligently, you think about it when you're writing your report. These are the inputs that are provided. These will be the outputs of these inputs. And then what will you measure? You will either measure effectiveness, or you will measure efficiency, or you will measure relevance. And if it is relevant, then if it will be effective. And then the last one that I found very interesting and challenging was to look at was the institutions. Next page. Was the innovation, sorry. And I looked at Barack Obama's definition of innovation. He said it is the creation of something that improves the way we live our lives. So the thematic areas that you have, they will improve the ways that we live our lives vis-a-vis water and hygiene and sanitation. And innovation, as the management guru, you know, he was one of our teachers as well, is Peter Drucker. He says innovation creates a new dimension of performance. You know, like we think कि जैसा चल रहा है पानी तो सब जगह दिल्ली में आ रहा है, दिल्ली का पानी is the best. But every other day we get bad water, we get smelly water. So then I talk to the water resources, the water Delhi Jal board, and then they say, okay, madam, we are going to put in something new. So they keep changing, they keep adding, but that is not innovative. Something more has to be done. So what they did was they created a whole water processing unit, which is not the old-fashioned one of, you know, tubewell mein se aayega, ek filter mein se jayega. So they went into French collaboration and they've established a water processing thing. So that creates a new dimension. It made it more effective and more efficient, because then the water is better, and then they are collecting the water fee also. So new dimension in our performance. Okay, next. So this is the last one. It is creation. It is innovation is the creative development of new creation. Oh yeah, sorry. Creative development of new projects, products, processes, or services. It is not just tangible things. It could be any other things, with an aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, and competitive advantage. Because anything now should have a business model as well. So there has to be a competitive advantage to anything that you present, because there is a cost that is involved in what you're doing. So there has to be a return, and it has to be more competitive and advantageous to whoever will adopt it. So yeah, so these are some of the definition things that will help you in writing better, in conceptualizing better, and of course in expressing and in communicating it better. Next slide, I think that's the last slide. Then you have to do the timelines that you know, you can work on with yourself. Next slide. This is also the way to do your bibliography. This is the Harvard style. Next. Then these are the apps for assistance that you can take from. And when you're writing, when you are putting YouTube or anything on the bibliography, you have to put the shorter version. You don't have to do the https://. It can be www YouTube something, or it can be www c44.com something. So you don't have to do the long things. So, or you can do, there is this you know, DIOB number, so you can just put that also, and that also will help people to find the document that you are referring to, and if they want to look at. Next slide, please. And then there are these open sources things. Yeah, this is where I have put it. So then there are open sources that you can use easily. You can use your own pictures. You can use pictures from the stock. There are technical sites that you can copy things, but you have to be very aware that the copyrights are protected and you're not infringing on intellectual property rights. And that is where the importance of referencing and citation comes in. Because if you are referencing people, and if it is not more than 3 or 4 sentences, then you can pick the quotation or pick that part and cite it. But you cannot do that, and you cannot do that at random. You cannot plagiarize, or you cannot copy the whole document or the whole section. And so plagiarism is allowed, I think 10%. I don't know how much you will allow, Alka. And then you can do a check on the plagiarism app. And I'm sure most of you who've done your master's thesis will have done that. So you know that better than I do, because I have not done my master's thesis now. I did it many, many years ago. So that's about looking at all the points that were put in the project outline. So what I have not addressed really is the report, which is the number 8 solutions, because I don't know what to put there. Because I don't know what your innovative solution may be.
I think we'll come up to that later and have the report solution.
Exactly. Exactly.
But this is give a fair kind of understanding. And so fellows, when you will start writing it, as I said, this is a 1500 words or 2-pager of the document. And as and when you have some clarification required, you can ask Sudha and ask what you can write to us, perfectly fine. And so I think this all is quite informative. And I think the way Jyotsna Di has done, very scientific, the way everywhere she was giving references, the way she was explaining it, and I could not have done it a better job. This is really, really great. I think we can ask question, and Dipesh has a question, Didi, in chat. He is talking about what is the secondary data and how can we get it. Dipesh, you can ask your question in detail if you want to.
Yeah. Okay. Secondary data. Okay, Dipesh, where are you from? You're from Maharashtra. That's a long way. Okay, so the data sources are many, right? The secondary data sources are that already exist somewhere, right? It could be from the books that you're reading, you can get some data there. It could be from the journals, it could be from anywhere. It could be reports of the government, it could be the census documents, it could be documents from the partner organization that you will be assigned to, or you will be invited to. So all that thing that already exists before you start producing your own research data, that is secondary data, and that can be obtained from any sources. It could be quantitative and it could also be qualitative. It will be quantitative also because you're dealing with water. It can be quantitative largely, you know, mega whatever cusecs of water or mega gallons of water or things like that. Quality of water has other parameters. Impurities in water has other parameters. So all this is available. Like even now when I deal with the water Delhi Jal board here, because that is my constant interlocutor here. So I keep asking them, I said, have you tested the water and what was it last time? So then they give me the record from the last few years that this is how it has happened, the volume of water that is coming in. So all that exists before you start your research, whether it is academic, applied, technical, that gets into secondary data, right? It can be qualitative also, that somebody may explain in a book or in a journal or in a report the use of the impact or the effect of arsenic polluted water on people and their lives. So there could be books on that. So you can so that will also be data that will inform your research if you're working on arsenic polluted water or mercury polluted water. So there can be qualitative things which you can just say, okay, Jyotsna Roy and Alka Toma did a study in in 1940s when water was highly polluted by arsenic, and this was the result. That's it. So 1940 की study है, तो उसके लिए बस इतना. But अगर अभी की है, so then you can also add that they did the study and they influenced the policy makers, which prevented effluents from flowing into the fields or into the water sources. So all that can be part of your secondary data, which is largely informing your research, your literature survey, basically. Your literature review will be informed by the secondary data, which will lead to the gaps which you will address in your primary research. Does that answer your question, Divesh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that's where you have to be very careful, Dipesh, because otherwise we can start flowing, like in the sea of documents and the sea of books. So if you are very focused as to, I want to find out why this water is smelling so much, that's it. Then you can start looking at. So the keywords help you in your literature search. Yeah, because otherwise you'll be floundering around.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
And anybody who asks a question, I am very thankful to you. I think they all need tea or what?
This is perfectly fine. Journey, yeah. Ankit, you have some question here? Yes. Okay. So I think this is perfectly fine. I can invite Kritika. If there are not more questions here, then we definitely will be sharing the presentation with all of you, and all the information. Guideline documents are being finalized. That also will come to you. And but primarily, any question to Jyotsna Di here will be really, really good to clarify your doubt, as you have understood what exactly the project outline document will be. And I'm sure it's not the first set of document that you are writing, and you have been doing it in your master's and MTech and in bachelor's also. But most importantly, do not write it from academic point of view. We want the document to be from the professional or from somebody from a project point of view where the projects are being implemented, or you're actually doing something on ground, or maybe theoretical, but not prospectively writing a research document from academic point of view. That's what we are not looking at. Yeah. And that's where Jyotsna Di had really helped to demystify each and every topic. Though we understand that when you'll sit together and start writing, this will be all together. Then only the journey of learning and demystifying yourself will start, but perfectly fine with it. We are around to help you out in that. And I think with this, Jyotsna Di, I think I'll take this opportunity to conclude this session, and I'd like to invite Kritika Bahuguna, who's going to do the recap of the session and kind of start helping us and closing the session. Kritika, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll be doing the recapping of today's session, which was based on the content writing, and it was given by Jyotsna, Ma'am Jyotsna Roy, which he's a social scientist. So the lecture started with her telling us what we need to know prior to having a good communication. So in order to have a good communication, we need to know what we want to communicate, what our topic is, and how we are going to say it, and who is our audience. So in order to complete and have an effective communication, we need to have an feedback so that there is a complete cycle. So then she asked us about the problems we face and help us and how we can overcome it. So she also told us that in our journey with this fellowship and with our internship, we will need to communicate with different kind of people, like the laymen, the community, and our mentors. So in order to have an effective communication with them, we should know how we are going to communicate with different people. There is a difference in how we communicate with different communities. So she also talked about the major challenges which our generation is facing right now, the use of instant messaging. So we have forgot to use how the full sentences and usage of full spellings and words. So in order to improve our communication skills, we need to start writing full sentences, use of full words, start reading the books again and reading the dictionary in order to improve our vocabulary, which will also help us to gain our confidence in having an effective communication. So then she, by resolving one of our fellows' doubt of how to have how to frame question, she told us in order to frame good questions, we first need to know what we want to know. So for having good question, we should frame open-ended questions so that we can gather more information from the other person. So then, then apart from the verbal communication, she told us how to improve our writing skills. So as writing is different from the verbal communication, so in our writing also we need to know what our objective is and who is our audience. Like if we are going to write for a technical department, then we should use the technical words. But if we are going to write for the layman, then the usage of words should be different. So in order to have a effective writing, we should use simple sentences which are easily understandable. Short sentences lessen the use of words like and other, therefore, other things. So we should have an independent main clause which will communicate our main objective, and then we can add other clauses which will be dependent on it. So our writing should be concise and precise, and we should do an analysis before we should write in order to have a good writing skill. And then she talked about various ways we can we can write our writing skills, like using of thesaurus or the spelling checker in the MS Word, using of the various apps. So then at the end, she also helped us. She also talked about how we can make our project outline better, like how we should write our title. It should be precise, concise, and it should make the audience curious. Then she talked about how we should first do the literature review prior to making the project title. Then she talked about how should write our goals and objectives. The difference, the goal, which will be the outcome we need to achieve, and the objective will be the end result, which should be achievable and time bound. Then she talked about the approach and the methodology. Like the approach which will decide our methodology. Like if we have a participatory or a profit or a technical approach, then our methodology will change accordingly. So yeah, and in the end, ma'am also suggested that we can among ourselves, we can also peer review our project outlines so that we can help each other how we can improve ourselves. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Very elaborate one. And last time we had to resort to videos. I don't know how many of you have seen each other's video, but this is what we want to do. And yeah, so Jyotsna Di, if any last minute, any few things that you want to share.
No, the one thing that I like to share is that just go with an open mind and take your time before you speak. The people, especially the people who said the fellows who said that they feel a bit diffident, lack of confidence in speaking to people. So prepare yourself. And like the example I gave you of the member of parliament in a different country who was very diffident, तो वो अपने constituency से अच्छे से बात कर सकती थी. Because she won, she was a member of parliament, but she could not speak in the presence of all the other people, and especially if there were some foreigners like us, because she was diffident. She was not so confident. But when she prepared, she could say something very, very valuable and very, very. So please be prepared with what you want to say, and courage comes from inside, right? Nobody else, but you can find somebody within the group, if you are in a group, who can help you to speak. So preparation of knowing your subject well is the way to good communication, is the way to doing a good project proposal. First of all, be very precise in your proposal. And that, I think, Alka madam will make sure that you don't wander off. So then your results will be good and satisfying. And when you have to present it to your mentors, and remember that sometimes these lead to new opportunities, because your presentation of yourself, your communication skills, your writing skills, your non-verbal behavior, all this is part of your grooming that you are getting as a fellow. And this is a very, very a precious and a unique opportunity given the real tough times that we are all in. So make use of that and make use for a self-development process as well. So when you are doing things, when you know what you're doing and when you have done enough research and background work in it, then you will become assertive people. People who are technically equipped and assertive rather than being passive or aggressive or being, so try and be assertive people. People who are, people who know what to say, people who know how to say it, and people who are willing to say it. So be assertive in your behaviors. Don't be aggressive. Don't be passive. And since you're a fellow, I know that you're not passive. So then now it is between aggression and assertiveness that you have to choose. And you can be only assertive only when you are technically sound and confident in yourselves. So all the very best to you. And I thank Center for Youth to inviting me here and having the confidence in me to speak to these brilliant young people here. So best of wishes to all of you and to the partner organizations who are going to host you. So yeah, all the best and bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nadi. I think I must tell you that one of the very, first set of training that I've got into development sector came from Jyotsna Di on gender. And then from there, the connect started until now. We have been, at least I've been leaning on for her for all the guidance and support. So thank you very much. And this exactly, I think the session was very much required to set the ball rolling for all the deliverables, and this will really help. We have a detailed guideline, so don't worry about it. We, in fact, I'm just adding another component in the guidelines on how do you do British English writing. So that's, I'm just adding all that. So there'll be a lot of handy things that will come to you for your future. So thank you very much, Jyotsna Di. Thank you. And I'll request fellows to stay for another 5 minutes, and we for all the help, we will have something to discuss. So thank you very much, Jyotsna.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Feedback ले लेना थोड़ा सा.
Sure, that's what we're going to do behind your back. That's what we're asking you to go, and then we can do the feedback.
Sure.
Of the session.
All the best. Bye.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Then can you stop the recording?